Om Adhyanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome back everyone to Wisdom of
Hare
Bhagavad
Krishna,
Gita.
Dandava Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Dandava Pranam. We are on chapter 13 currently. The chapter is entitled as Kshetra Kshetra Vibhaga Yoga, and in English it is called Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. And we have summarized that first 12 verses in the last session, and we also covered verses 13 to 26 of this chapter. As we all know, in the beginning of this chapter, Arjuna has asked 6 questions to Lord Shri Krishna, and the Lord has immediately started answering them. And in verses from 13 to 26, in the beginning, Lord started talking about what is Neya, or what is the object of knowledge. And generally in this material world, our object of knowledge is all this material knowledge. But Lord explained immediately that we should actually focus on the soul and the super soul, and especially the super soul we should make the object of the knowledge. And if we focus our knowledge on the Supreme Lord, then our life will be perfected. But it is not very easy to understand the Supreme Lord. So Lord Shri Krishna also mentioned at that point that only a devotee can know him, and then he can attain the eternal nature of the Lord. So again, he has glorified the process of bhakti and the bhaktas. Then after explaining the object of knowledge or answering what is Neya, then he started explaining about the difference between Prakriti and Purusha. So he mentioned that both are beginningless, both are eternal. Prakriti is also eternal and Purusha is also eternal. But there is a difference as well. Prakriti is cause of creating all these material things around us, including our body. But Prakriti doesn't create happiness and distress. Happiness and suffering is coming from the soul himself. Soul is the cause. Because of the soul's attachment and attachment to being the enjoyer. Actually, soul is not the Purusha. The soul is also a kind of a Prakriti, is to be enjoyed. But soul, like all of us, think that we are the enjoyers. We are the controllers. We are the proprietors. And because of that, then we get entangled in Prakriti. Purusha is the superior. Purusha is superior than Prakriti. But because he gets attached to Prakriti and then attached to thinking that I am the enjoyer of this Prakriti, then he gets entangled into it. So who's the real enjoyer then? Who's the real Purusha? So the Supreme Lord is the real enjoyer. So what we should be doing is we should be using the Prakriti, including ourselves, in the service of the Supreme Lord. And that is how we can just come out of this entanglement that we are in. And we talked about last week that when we start thinking that I am the enjoyer, we do not enjoy. But as soon as we start serving the Supreme Lord, using whatever we have, and consider the Lord as the enjoyer, automatically we start getting enjoyment. So this is how it works. And in the end of that section, we heard that by hearing from the right authority is the best and easiest process to get this knowledge. So again, the Shravanam, which is part of Bhakti, is emphasized here. So all 6 questions have been answered by the Supreme Lord in this set by this 26th verse that we covered last week. So what is Neya? Sorry, what is Kshetra? Kshetra is this body. Who's a Kshetrajna? Kshetrajna, he said that there are two Kshetrajnas. Who's the knower of this field? He said that the soul and the super soul, both are the knower of the field. Soul knows only this body that it is in, but the super soul knows all the bodies because he is everywhere. So Kshetra and Kshetrajna was explained. Then Prakriti and Purusha that we just now discussed was explained. And the knowledge and the process of knowledge that was also explained. So the real knowledge is to know the difference between Kshetra, Kshetrajna, like the body, soul, and the super soul. So that is the real knowledge. And the process of knowledge was explained in this chapter, the section between the verses 8 to 12. So there were 20 factors which were mentioned. So all of this, the Lord has already explained. So what is he going to tell us in the next 7 verses that we are going to cover? 7 or 8 verses, yeah, 27 onwards. So actually 9 verses that we are going to cover because there are 35 verses. So let us see what the Lord is going to explain to us in these next 9 verses which are coming up. So here the Lord starts explaining the Jnana Chakshu, the vision of knowledge. So a devotee who has now received this knowledge of the difference between the body, soul, and super soul, how does he behave? Like what does he see? What is the vision of such a person? So let us start looking from verse number 27 onwards. यावत् संजायते किंचित् सत्वं स्थावरजङ्गमं क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात् तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभ. Who wants to read the translation?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, can I read?
Yes, Mother, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. O chief of the Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and non-moving, is only a combination of the fields of activities and the knower of the field. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mother. So from this verse, now we can see what Lord has started explaining. Who has, like the person who has this vision of knowledge, what is he seeing? First of all, this person understands the difference between the spirit and the matter. He can differentiate between the soul and the body. And this is the main thing. And then one sees all this moving and non-moving as a combination of the field and the knower of the field. Like if he sees some mountains, he sees some hills, or he sees a dog or a human being or even a devata he's seeing. So he's not getting bewildered by any of those. He understands that whether it is moving or non-moving, they are all the combination of Prakriti, like this field which is there, and the knower of the field. So the matter and the spirit is coming together, and all of these things are getting manifested. So he can see all of these, and he can understand the the difference, and he can understand that all of these things that he's seeing is just the combination of these two. Um, I think earlier we have seen that there was or maybe that analogy is coming afterwards, where it was said that it is like um, this various species of life. They are like different rooms in this um, big building, and each room is like a different kind of body, and the person is entering into one room, then it comes out and enters into another room, then comes out and enters into another room. So from sometimes he's a pig, sometimes he becomes a dog, sometimes he becomes elephant, or sometimes he becomes a human being, sometimes he becomes a devata. Again, he just keeps going into this big building with different rooms which are there. And uh, even though he's actually going into different rooms, the person remains the same. So the soul remains the same, only the body is changing. So that is what the person who has this vision can see. Let us go ahead and see what else. Verse number 28. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram vinashatsvam avinashantam ya pashyati sa pashyati. Yeah, Surananda Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed actually sees.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. So, Lord Shri Krishna has already given this knowledge of the soul earlier in the second chapter, that the soul is eternal, it is indestructible, but the body is not eternal, it is temporary and it can get destroyed because it transforms. It undergoes various transformation, whereas the soul doesn't undergo any transformations. So this is the main difference that we have already seen in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. That was the foundational knowledge Lord Shri Krishna has given to us at that point. So this person who has the vision to differentiate between the two can see that the body is destructible, but the person within that body can never be destroyed. But this person's knowledge is not limited to just from with the body and the soul. That knowledge is also not very complete. This verse is also explaining that such a person also has additional knowledge, which is the knowledge of the super soul. So this knowledge is also there. He sees the indestructible super soul accompanying the indestructible individual soul in all the bodies. So not only he is able to see the soul and the body and differentiate between the two, he can also understand that each body is also having super soul seated within the heart, and that super soul is also indestructible. Let us go ahead to the next verse. Samam pashyan hi sarvatra samavasthitam ishwaram na hinastya na hinastya atman atmanam tato yati param gatim. Arminder Prabhuji, you had raised your hand earlier.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendental destination. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So one who sees the super soul equally present everywhere. So we have seen this in the fifth chapter as well, that this person who has the equal vision, he is able to see the super soul in each person's body. And that is why he can see even the dog eater, the dog, or a Brahmana, all of them are having the same quality of the soul within the body. And he also sees the super soul is present everywhere. So that is why he is respectful towards all living entities. He doesn't think that, oh, I will kill this animal and I'll eat them. Because he can see that, oh, the super soul is present in this body as well. So I shouldn't do that. So one who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. So mind is the cause of our degradation. If you remember, in the sixth chapter, we have talked quite elaborately on mind. There we also saw these verses where Lord Shri Krishna was explaining to Arjuna that he was saying, Uddharet Atma Atmanam Natmanam Avasadayed Atmaiva Hyatmano Bandhur Atmaiva Ripur Atmanah. So he was saying, Uddharet Atma Atmanam, that we have to liberate ourselves with the help of mind. And how we can do it? We can do it by making the the mind as our friend, or it can become our enemy. So if it is our friend, Actually, the next verse explains this better. So let us look at that next verse as well. So Krishna says in 6.6, he says, Bandhur Atmana Atmanastasya Yenatmayo Atmana Jita Atma Anatmanastu Shatrutve Vartatet Vartatet Maiva Shatruvat. So Lord Shri Krishna is saying in 6.6 that the person who has controlled his mind is his friend. But the person who's getting controlled by the mind, for him that the mind is his enemy. And if our mind is our friend, we can liberate ourselves. But if our mind is our enemy, then we will just get entangled into this material world more and more. So if the mind is controlled, it is our friend, and then we can use the mind to liberate ourselves. But if mind is uncontrolled and the mind is controlling us, then it will become our enemy, and such mind will just entangle us into this material world. So here, Lord Shri Krishna is again reminding us that we should not degrade ourselves by this mind. We should control the mind, make the mind as friend, and then such a mind will help us move upwards, closer to Krishna. But how can we degrade? How do we degrade our mind? By looking at others. Sometimes we have, like this verse is specifically saying, one who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. So when we see towards other living entities, and if we see that the other person has, say, suppose, more knowledge than us, or the other person is more handsome, more beautiful than us, or the other person is more rich, other person is more healthy, or anything better than we have, if this other person has anything better than we have, then automatically we become envious. And then as soon as we actually start seeing that, oh, what he has, why do not I have? And how can I get what this other person has? How can I pull him down so that I will become better than him? So that person's mind is now degrading this person and pulling him down. But this person with the vision of the Supreme Lord in each person, he sees that, oh, the Supreme Lord is present in the body of this person, and anything good that I see in him or her is showing the presence of the Supreme Lord. You remember in the 7th and the 9th chapter as well, we have discussed this, that and the 10th chapter as well, various different vibhutis we were seeing. There also we talked about it, that the Lord is intelligence of the intelligent, or the strength of the strong. He is the taste of the water. He is the luminance of the sun, or he is the heat of the fire. All of these things that we have seen. So this is actually synthesizing. It is putting this all together into these verses very briefly. And the Lord is trying to remind us that, see, we have already discussed. I'm just summarizing it here for you. So we should see the super soul when anyone is, uh, we see anyone, we should see a super soul within them. And even if they have something better than us, there should not be envy or hatred, because that will lead to our happiness or suffering, mainly suffering here. But if we do not see them um, with this envious vision, but we see them with equal vision, then what will happen is we will become happy because we are seeing the super soul within them. Is that making sense? Okay, fine. So in this verse, 29th verse, we have seen one sees the super soul equally present everywhere. This person who has this great vision. Let us look at verse number now 30. Yeah, we saw 29, right? Yeah. प्रकृत्यैव च कर्माणि क्रियमाणानि सर्वशः यपश्यति तथात्मानं Akartaram sapashyati. Who wants to read? Yes, Mahendra Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually says. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. So what Krishna is saying here, quite interesting. One who sees that all activities, actually, we think that we are doing all these activities. But here Krishna is saying that this person who has this real knowledge, he is seeing that all activities are performed by the body, which is created by material nature. So this body is creating all the activities which is created by this material nature. So Prakriti is doing everything and sees that the self does nothing and the soul is not doing anything. And the person is seeing properly. So all activities are done by Prakriti and the soul is not doing anything. And the person who's seeing like this is seeing properly. And we have seen this before as well. In the third chapter, let us go and see verse number 3.27 and read the translation there. So someone who can reach 3.27 quickly can read the translation. And you will see that we have seen this. We are the seer. I'm just joking with the word. Yeah, Kalakali Mataji.
The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature.
Thank you, Mataji. So do you see the similarity here? This verse is also saying that actually the activities are done by the three modes of material nature. So Prakriti is doing everything. But we foolishly think, because of the effect of the false ego, that I am the doer. So the soul is not the doer. The Prakriti is doing everything with the sanction of the Supreme Lord. But we think that, oh, I am doing this. I am the doer of these things. If something good happens, we say that I did it. And if something bad is happening, then we blame the God, saying that, hey, what have you not seen how much bhakti I'm trying to do? And now suddenly you are saying um, something like some bad is happening with me, that some job is getting impacted or health is getting impacted or something which we do not like is happening with us, then we suddenly start blaming the God. So that shouldn't happen. So this doership or thinking that I am the enjoyer, I am the doer, is entangling us in this material world. But this person that we are talking about, who is advanced, who has a higher knowledge, and he is able to see this higher knowledge and in practice. And that is why, because he's detached and aloof, he's able to see this. But those who are not able to see this because of the false ego, they get entangled and they get the karma of the reaction of the activities that they are doing. Is that clear? Rajiv Prabhu, you have a question or a comment, or you want to read the translation?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I have a question. Then who exactly is the doer? Because in the case of, if good things are happening, that's great. Let's say the body is the doer of things. If bad things are happening, you have to then, control it somehow. You just mentioned that the mind then, controls the actions of the body. So who exactly is the doer?
Yeah, we actually discussed this before, that there are actually three doers which are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. So the soul, the Prakriti, and the Supreme Lord, all three are doers. But when we actually talk about in the context of karma and its result, at that time we can see that the person or the jiva or the soul is the real doer. See, the example that we usually talk about, and I think Srila Prabhupada also gave it in the book, that a small child is trying to lift a box, but the box is quite heavy, but the small child is not able to lift it. And so the father sees that, oh, the small child is trying to pick up the box, and the father comes from behind and helps the child lifting the box. So actually, the father has lifted the box. But the father wouldn't have lifted the box if the child didn't want to actually lift the box. So because the child has a desire to lift the box, that is why the father has helped him to lift the box. So it is the same thing. Any activity that we do, the soul is only able to desire that I want to do this. So that desire is the beginning point of everything. So the super soul sitting within our heart, he sees the desire, and if we are eligible to do this or eligible for that result that we are going to get, then he sanctions that desire, and then Prakriti actually gets the work done. But Prakriti and the super soul who's sitting in our heart, so Prakriti is this body, and super soul, um, which is the supreme Lord who's sitting in the heart, they are not the they are not the initiator of the actions. They wouldn't have done a specific thing if the desire was not there in the in this in the soul. So everything starts from the desire of the soul. And because it starts from the desire of the soul, the reaction of the action comes to the soul. But if you just add from third party perspective, like from aloof, you become aloof and you're seeing this from far, then you can see actually there are three doers. The soul is desiring, so he's a desiring doer. The super soul is sanctioning the activity, so he's a sanctioning doer. But the Prakriti is actually a doing doer. She is actually doing the actual activity. We do not have the ability to do any activity without the sanctioning of the Supreme Lord and Prakriti doing it. So there are three doers, but all the activities are starting because of the desire of the soul. So when we talk about reaction of karma, that goes to the soul, but otherwise all three are doing it. Is that making sense, Raju Prabhu? Or did I confuse you more?
No. It is in terms of the logic, how it proceeds. But what the follow-up question I have is, let's say I'm contemplating murder. Not that I'm doing it, but it's just, hypothetically. Now, if that is a desire, is the supreme, soul going to help in that desire? Because obviously it's murder. If it was
Hmm.
to uphold dharma, then it might be considered righteous. Or let's change that. Let's say I'm contemplating rape. I've got this uncontrolled desires, right? And I'm contemplating that. It's just a contemplation right now. Is there accumulation of karma there in just thinking about it? Then second step would be taking action on it. And the third step would be like heinous crime, rape, earn, murder. So who is helping there? Who is the actual doer? Who should be punished?
Yeah, who gets punished? In the law is very clear. Whoever is doing that activity is getting punished, right?
Yeah.
So everything is originating from the desire of that person. And the Supreme Lord has the ability to change the desires. But are we surrendered to the Supreme Lord? So if we are surrendered to the Supreme Lord, then the Lord will actually change the desires for us. But if we are rebellious and we do not want to listen to the Supreme Lord, then the Lord will not interfere in the desires that we have. And it will allow things to happen because that is our desire. And that is where the soul is getting the reaction for it. The soul has desired to do this, and only by desiring, if we stop at the desire level, then if the action is not happened, then the karma hasn't happened. So we do not get the reaction of that particular activity. But the problem of the mind, which was again explained in the second chapter, where if we actually desire and we keep contemplating on it, then it will turn into action. Dhyayato vishayan punsa sangasteshu pajayate. Sangat sanjayate kama, kamat krodho vijayate. So if we have a desire and it comes and goes, that is different matter. But if we keep contemplating on it, then we will form attachment to it. And then that attachment will lead to kama. It will develop lust. I want to do it now. I want it. And that is how the action will happen. So, and when that action happens, then the result will definitely come to the doer. And in this material world, sometimes the criminals are not caught and they do not get the punishment. But the super soul is sitting in everyone's heart, and super soul is watching everything. And such a person is definitely going to get the result, the reaction, if not in this life, in some other lifetime, because that is there into his account, and that he cannot shy away from. Making sense?
Yes, so there is no escaping it.
No
You
escape.
you could fool the law enforcement here in
Yeah,
the judiciary system, but
but not from the Lord.
yeah,
Yeah,
so there'll be justice.
there will be justice, definitely.
Okay.
Okay,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
fine. Hare Krishna. Let us move on. So we were talking about one who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created by material nature, and sees that the self is doing nothing, is seeing properly. So we have seen this, that the self is not doing anything, and only the Prakriti is doing all of that. Okay, let us move to the next verse. यदा भूतपृथग्भावम् एकस्थम् अनुपश्यति तत एव च विस्तारं ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा. Who wants to read?
Prabhuji, can I read, Prabhuji? I can't show my hand.
Yes, please
Thank
go.
you, Prabhuji. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
So, in this 31st verse, we are seeing that one is seeing the living entity as distinct from the field of activities. So, we have already discussed that before, so let us move on. अनादित्वान् निर्गुणत्वात् परमात्माय अव्ययः शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते. Yes, Vibhav Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. So, what is mentioned here? Those with vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul. So, again, some of the qualities of the soul are mentioned, which were already covered in second chapter. So, he's saying that the soul is imperishable. Then it is transcendental. Transcendental means the three modes of material nature, sattva guna, rajoguna, and tamoguna, they are material. And transcendental means the soul is beyond these three modes of material nature. So it is spiritual. It is eternal. That is the third quality is mentioned. And it is beyond the modes of nature. And despite contact with the material body, oh Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. This is quite interesting. So, one sees that the soul never mixes with the body, but it is transcendental and eternal. And it is also, we have been saying that the soul is entangled in this material nature. But now this verse is saying that the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. So how's this? Like, whether is it like, does it get entangled or does it not get entangled? So it is the vision. The person who's able to differentiate these things, that the spirit soul is different and transcendental, the body is material, and the super soul is above all of that. The person who's able to see this clearly, that person can see that the soul is eternal, transcendental, and never gets entangled anywhere. And he sees that the soul is just a pure Sat Chit Ananda, just like this, similar to the super soul. It's the same quality as the super soul, and that is why it doesn't get entangled. But the person who is entangled because of his desires and because of his mind, he is not seeing this freedom because of various attachments that this person has. So actually the soul doesn't get entangled because the soul is transcendental. But because of this connection that is there with the material nature and thinking that I am the enjoyer of this, that is why we temporarily get somehow or the other bound here. And we will see more in the next chapter that is coming, the 14th chapter. It is titled only the three modes of material nature. So we will understand that better there. So we'll see that there. Raju Prabhu, you have some further question?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes.
So if the soul is transcendental and eternal and does not accumulate any karma, then how does the karma go from one life to the other? We just talked about it. Justice will eventually be served, whether it's in this life or the next life, or whichever life it is. So how does that transmit across?
Yeah,
What's
that's
the
a good
medium
question.
taking it across?
Yeah. So the soul is moving from one body to another. And it is not that it is not accumulating karma as such. The reactions of the soul are actually moving from one body to another. So whatever actually the reactions that we have accumulated, which we haven't yet experienced, whether it is good reaction or bad reaction, they are like on our head. It is invisible, but they are there. They are like the huge mountain, more like bigger than the Everest mountain, that those karma that we are carrying from one body to another. And that is how the reactions we get into the next life as well. And these reactions which are accumulated are called the destiny. So we come with some destiny, and that destiny is not randomly assigned that Raju Prabhu is going to be rich and someone else is going to be poor. Randomly, that the first person comes rich, second person's poor, third person rich, fourth person poor. It's nothing like that. The destiny is nothing but the reactions that we have accumulated but not yet experienced. All of that bank account is called destiny, and that is traveling with the soul. And when the right time comes, then that reaction will be given to us, good or bad, whatever is there, that will be given to us. So that is how the reactions of our karma are traveling with us. Is that making sense?
Not completely, but it's okay. I mean,
There are lectures on karma that I have given separately. If you have more interest in the lectures on karma, then karma is a big topic, and we take like probably 6-7 hours of sessions as well on karma. So I would just, if you have interest, I would send you some links, and you can watch them in your free time,
yes.
and that will get it more clear for you. Okay,
Thank you.
fine. So we have seen verse number 32. Now 33 and 34 are giving specific examples. Some analogies are explained to explain this point which is mentioned in here in number 32. Like how the soul never mixes with the body, but it remains transcendental and eternal. But we know that the soul is within the body. So how does it not get mixed? So that is explained by two analogies in the next two verses. Verse number 33. यथा सर्वगतं सौक्ष्माद् आकाशं नोपलिप्यते सर्वत्रावस्थितो देहे तथात्मानोपलिप्यते. Yes, Mamendra Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminate all this universe, so
Which
does.
one you are reading? I have read 33, Prabhuji, not
Oh,
34.
sorry. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with body, although situated in that body. Hare Krishna.
So here the verse is talking about the sky. Sky, so Akash, due to its subtle nature, it does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. So whether it is water, mud, stool, or whatever is there, the sky is there, everywhere it is there. But it still doesn't, because it is quite subtle, it doesn't get mixed with it. Srila Prabhupada, because with the sky, this is a little bit difficult to understand. So Srila Prabhupada has, in the purport, used the example of an air. So Srila Prabhupada says the air enters into water, mud, stool, and whatever else is there. Still, it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. So the air is everywhere, but still air is not getting mixed with all those substances. But the soul is even more subtler than the air. So even though this soul is there within the body, it is not getting mixed with the body. So we put some oil into water, but the oil doesn't get mixed in the water. The oil remains separate, water remains separate. So even the liquid, which is not even that subtle, we can see that they can remain separate. What to speak about matter and spirit? So matter is very gross and the spirit is very subtle. So because of that, it remains aloof. It doesn't get mixed. It remains temporarily in that body. But then how does it empower or power the body, which is given with another analogy in the next verse. यथा प्रकाशयत्येकः कृत्स्नं लोकमिमं रविः क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं प्रकाशयति भारत. Who hasn't read today yet? Okay, if no one is raising, going ahead, then Vibhor Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare
Shanti
Krishna
Mataji, you
Prabhuji.
can do the next one.
O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So the example of the sun. So sun is at one place, and it is illuminating the entire universe. Similarly, the soul is also in the region of the heart, and um, from there it is illuminating the body uh, through consciousness, just like the sun is doing it. So that is how Lord Shri Krishna is explaining by giving some examples to us that how the soul is there in each and every body, but it doesn't mix, it is transcendental. So that is how it has been explained. Now, what can we learn from this? We can understand that the whole purpose of this entire chapter, where Arjuna had asked these 6 questions and Lord Shri Krishna has beautifully answered, is to make us understand that there is a difference between the body, soul, and super soul. And we have to actually understand the difference. We have to learn to distinguish between them. What is Kshetra and what are the two different Kshetrajñas? Who's Prakriti? Who's the real Purusha? What is the real object of knowledge? All of that we have to actually understand. And we should not degrade ourselves with our mind. So this is the lesson that Lord Shri Krishna is trying to give us through this chapter again in this Jnana section. Like this 13 to 18th chapter section is the Jnana section. We saw in the beginning that this section, Krishna is trying to create some detachment from material nature within us. So both is required, attachment to Krishna and detachment to the material nature. So Krishna is trying to give this knowledge by which we can create some detachment, create some understanding of the material nature, understand that how we are getting entangled, what is the cause by which we are just remaining here. If we understand that cause, then we can act on it. So that is what the Lord has mentioned. So verse number 35 is the summary of all of this, and Lord Shri Krishna is trying to give us some interesting point here. Let us see that. Kshetra kshetrajnayorevam antaram jnana-chakshusha bhuta-prakriti moksham cha ye viduryanti te param.
Hey, Krishna.
Hare
Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal.
Thank you, Mataji. So here a formula is given, which we have seen, but Lord Shri Krishna is emphasizing that point again in this verse. He's saying that those who have eyes of knowledge. And what was the knowledge? What was the real knowledge was mentioned? What is the real knowledge? Yes, Surananda Prabhu?
Knowing body, soul, and super soul.
Yeah. Knowing the difference between body, soul, and super soul, that is the real knowledge. So those who have these eyes of knowledge, and they can understand the difference between Kshetra and Kshetrajna, and they understand the process of liberation from bondage in material world, material nature. And the process of liberation was given as the verse between verse 8 and 12. There are the 20 points which were given. So those who understand the difference and those who have understood the process of liberation of those 20 points, and especially the two important points, which were surrendering to the spiritual master and then following the process of bhakti. So if we do those, then we can attain the supreme goal. So that is what the Supreme Lord is trying to tell us in this chapter. Vision, Kshetra Kshetra Vibhagayo, or nature enjoyer and consciousness. So we still have some time. So let us look at some summary points, and if we still have some time remaining, then we can even start the next chapter now, 14th chapter. So any questions, comments, reflections on this entire chapter that we have seen till now? Shanti Mataji, you have still your hand up. Do you?
Sorry, Prabhu.
No, then no problem. Surananda Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I'm stuck at this point, 30th sloka. One sees that all activities are performed by the body and the self does nothing. It is activities performed by the body, Prabhuji. We learned that it's Prakriti is performing.
So what is Prakriti?
So Bahiranga Shakti.
Yeah, but Prakriti is not, Prakriti is same as body.
Yeah, okay.
Like you're talking about the energy, but the Prakriti is also three modes of material nature, and this body also, we say that it is Prakriti. It is made of matter. Anything that is made of matter is also Prakriti. So in different contexts, just like self or Atma, we refer differently. So Atma, sometimes we say Atma is soul. Sometimes we also say, oh, Atma here in this context is referring to mind actually. Similarly, Prakriti, we can refer to the energy, which is Maya, or this body, which is made of the gross elements, or even the three modes of material nature. They are all Prakriti, but in different contexts, they refer differently.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, Rajiv Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I'm sure this is probably already discussed in one of the previous chapters, but since we've got a bit of time, I thought I'll throw it out there. Why? The question is basically why? Why the whole creation and all these things are happening, right? And why the goal to pretty much cleanse the soul and get back to the supreme soul. Why this whole game in the first place?
Yeah, because of the desire of the soul. So just like the simple example that we talk about is The children are happy in the parents' house. The parents are looking after everything. They are paying all the bills. The mother is cooking and providing the food as well on the diet table. But still, when the children grow up, why do they want to actually go out of the house and enjoy separately, independently? They want their freedom. So when they are staying in the house, the rules of the house are done by the parents. So they think that, oh, they are the controller, they are the enjoyer, they are the proprietor of this. But I want to be a separate enjoyer. I want to be an independent controller and proprietor, and I want to do something separately. And when this desire comes, then even though there are so many benefits which are there in the parents' house, the child wants to actually go out and then have their own um, separate home and try to enjoy separately like this. But the idea is that the parents are always waiting for the children. And as soon as this false ego, like the ego that the child has when sometimes the situation is that they are in difficulty and they go back to the parents, parents immediately take them back because they are waiting for them and they are ready to do all the things that they were doing for the children before. So from this logic, we can understand that we were in the spiritual world, but because of our independent nature, then we had this desire that I should actually try enjoying separately from Krishna. And because we had this desire, the Lord allowed this creation of the material world. Because in the spiritual world, uh, because the spiritual world is absolute, you can't have multiple masters there. Absolute means it is one master that is there, the Supreme Lord. So Krishna created this material world out of the compassion where he created a situation where each individual person can think that they are masters, they are enjoyers, they are proprietors because of our desire. But at the same time, he also gave us the process out of his compassion to purify ourselves, reform ourselves, and then we can go back to him. Is that making sense?
Yes, it is. But then, the why on top of that, why create this in the first place? Like, why create any one of us? Or this, creation that the Lord has created, you know, it's unless someone's getting bored and they're like, okay, you know what, I'll create this program and let's see and play with it. And if I'm the chief architect of it, and then there are bugs in there which are pretty much killing each other, then you try to debug that. But why
So
create the program in the first place is the question.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So you're saying that why even the jivas were created in the
Yes.
beginning? Yeah, yeah. So that question, as you explained yourself as well, it is if someone wanted to, if someone was getting bored and someone wanted to have some fun.
Right.
So it is like this. For example, I can sit here in front because anyway, no one, like none of you are sitting in front of me, isn't it? So I can just sit in front of this camera, which I am speaking to, and speak about Bhagavad Gita for 1 hour, wisdom of Bhagavad Gita for 1 hour. But there is nothing much interesting there because there is no interaction that is there. So that is why it is more interesting when you have someone else to talk to, someone else to have this relationship and a discussion that is happening, then it becomes more interesting. So similarly, so there is leelas that Krishna wants to perform. And if you want to perform some leelas, then you can't perform it yourself. So he creates this creation, at least the spiritual world is created in that way, where the Supreme Lord can have some interactions in different relationships. Mainly in Vaikuntha, mainly it is the master and servant relationship, Dasya Bhav. But in other places, like Golok Vrindavan, we have these various different relationships like loving relationship, like Madhurya Rasa, or parental rasa, Vatsalya rasa, or Dasya rasa, or mm, uh, Shanta rasa. No, Sakya rasa as well in between. I forgot about that. So these five rasas are there. So this reciprocal relationships that you can have, and then you can perform various different activities, various different pastimes, and then that is more interesting. So that is how the creation was created. But Krishna's other name is also Atmaram. Atmaram means he doesn't require anyone. Like from the Tattva perspective, if you see the Shastra or some specific philosophical knowledge, then Krishna can enjoy alone. If they are there, he can enjoy with them. If they are not there, he can enjoy. He can enjoy alone as well. But that is only from Tattva perspective. From Leela perspective, that he wants to perform various different Leelas and have reciprocation, loving reciprocation with everyone, and that is even more interesting. And the same logic of parents, like the parents can live without children. When the children are gone, if they don't come back, they can live without them. So they can be satisfied and they can have their life going on. But when all the children are coming back and all the relatives are together, then there is that relationship, there is more interest, more loving reciprocation is there. So that is more interesting. So that is why that creation was done.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Any other questions, comments, reflections anyone has on this chapter? Any summary points? No? Nothing was understood today or fully understood? Pamindra Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, one question. When it
Yes.
says to universe in there, like if we go to the Western science, does it refer to solar system or does it refer to galaxy or does it refer to actual universe in there in Gita?
Yeah, this Vedic universe is a completely different concept than what we actually see in the science, material science. So all these galaxies and everything that we actually are able to see is part of one universe. And there are many layers of this universe which we are not able to see as per material science. And that is just one universe where one Brahma is looking after and managing the things. But then there are such multiple universes and even more complex than the current universe that we are in, which has, because of its complexity, Brahma is having more heads, more brains to, more CPU is required there. Yeah. So this universe is actually what we see plus more.
I was referring to this shloka, like where it's, the sun alone illuminates all the universe. So that's where it came from.
Yeah. Actually, here, when the Vedic scriptures talk about sun, it talks about sun god. So the sun god is illuminating because there is one planet, sun, but there is also a controller of that planet. And that planet, sun, is actually, or the sun god is actually illuminating everything. So that is what is mentioned. He is illuminating the entire universe. And he may have different means to do it. Okay, Surananda Prabhuji.
Krishna Prabhuji. One point I'll take today is if mind is our friend, then we can use the mind to liberate ourselves. If the mind is enemy, then we get entangled in this material world.
Very good. Thank you. So I have created a one slide summary just like last time. So like the summary which was there plus some additional point. This is the summary of the entire chapter. Let me. So Arjuna has asked about this sixth question. Kshetra, Kshetranya, Jnana, Neya, Purusha and Prakriti. So we have seen Kshetra means body. Kshetrajna, there are two, soul and super soul. Jnana means knowing all of these three. And Neya is the object of the knowledge is soul and super soul, and the real one we should focus on is soul. Purusha, who's the enjoyer? Super soul is the real enjoyer, but soul also thinks that he is the enjoyer. And Prakriti is referring to the body and matter. So what is this body? So the more knowledge was given in this chapter, it talked about the 24 components. There are 5 great elements, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 working senses, 5 object of senses, mind, intelligence, and ego, and pradhana. Soul, there were quite a lot of different characteristics of soul which were mentioned, that he's the individual knower, he's the proprietor of one body, he's a secondary controller, he's fallible, he's subordinate to the super soul. And about super soul as well, it was mentioned that he's a super knower, he's proprietor of all bodies, he's a supreme controller of all senses, he's infallible, he's superior. And there was also this knowledge about the process which was given, the 20 points. But the main important two out of them is approaching a spiritual master and engaging in devotional service. So this explains the entire chapter 13 that we have seen till now. So no time left. So we will start on chapter 14 next week, and we'll try to cover that in 2 sessions. Any other last comments or questions or reflections before we close today? No? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
I think the soul remains the same, only the body changes.
Correct.
And there was one more I just forgot.
Yeah. Rajiv
I think-
Prabhuji and Mahendra Prabhuji after that.
Yes, Prabhuji, the snippet that you just showed, I mean, I've taken a snippet of it. We can rewatch the recording of this. Could we
Yeah.
get that as part of, like every chapter summary that you're making? Could we keep getting that rather than taking snippets out of it?
Yeah, you can actually watch the video, but if you are wanting a PowerPoint or a specific slide, then I can actually provide
Okay.
a PDF of that. No problem.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Hare
Mahendra,
Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji. Yeah, no, I guess during that question and answers, it was good revision about who is the doer. And then I was going through the old notes as well, where you gave nice example of soul, material nature, and super soul of that thief, police, and judge. So it was good to go through those notes. Yeah,
Yeah, very
appreciate
good. So those who are keeping notes, they get this advantage. They can go back and refer, and then they can just recap what we learned before. Wonderful.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. We'll stop here today. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Srimad
Hare
Bhagavad
Krishna.
Gita ki jai.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.